Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events that shape our world. I'm your host, Walter, and I'm glad you're joining us today. We're starting off with a story that's been making headlines across the country. President Donald Trump has announced plans to take control of the local police department in Washington, D.C., citing out-of-control crime as the reason for his actions. However, data from the Metropolitan Police Department shows that violent crime is actually down 26% from this time last year, reaching a 30-year low. The move has been met with criticism from local officials, including D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, who says that the president's actions are out of touch with the facts on the ground. Other mayors from cities mentioned by Trump as having high crime rates, such as Baltimore, Oakland, and Chicago, have also pushed back against the president's claims, saying that their crime rates are actually decreasing. For example, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott says that homicides in his city are down 28% this year, the lowest level on record. Similarly, Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao reports that overall crime is down 28% from last year. These mayors argue that while there may be areas where crime is still a concern, the situation is not as dire as the president has made it out to be. It's worth noting that the mayors are not opposed to receiving federal help in addressing violence and crime in their cities. However, they say that sending in federal law enforcement is not the solution they need. Instead, they're calling for funding for violence prevention programs, gun control legislation, and other forms of support that can help them address the root causes of crime. As we explore this story further, it's clear that there are different perspectives on what's happening here. On one hand, the president is taking a tough stance on crime, which may resonate with some Americans who feel that their cities are not safe. On the other hand, local officials and experts argue that the president's approach is misguided and could even make things worse. We'll continue to follow this story and provide updates as more information becomes available. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. Do you think the president's actions are necessary to address crime in these cities? Or do you agree with local officials that a different approach is needed? Share your thoughts with us on social media using the hashtag #AllConcreteBlock. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into the latest developments in the world of international crime and law enforcement. Today, we're focusing on the escalating efforts by the United States to combat Mexican drug cartels. In recent weeks, the U.S. has taken significant steps to disrupt the operations of these cartels, which have been responsible for trafficking large quantities of methamphetamine, fentanyl, and cocaine into the country. The State Department has designated several of these groups, including the Michoacan-based United Cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. The U.S. Treasury Department has also imposed sanctions on members of United Cartels and another group known as Las Viagras, aiming to disrupt their revenue streams from violent and criminal schemes. Additionally, the Justice Department has unsealed indictments against high-ranking members of these groups, offering substantial rewards for information leading to their arrest. One such individual is Juan José Farias Alvarez, also known as El Abuelo, or the Grandfather, who is the head of United Cartels. The U.S. is offering a $10 million reward for his capture, and similar rewards have been announced for other top members of the group. These efforts come on the heels of Mexico's transfer of 26 wanted fugitives to the U.S., including several high-ranking members of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. This marks a significant escalation in cooperation between the two countries in their fight against organized crime. It's worth noting that the use of military force has also been considered, with reports suggesting that the U.S. may deploy troops to the Southern Caribbean to combat drug trafficking. However, the implications and potential consequences of such actions are still being debated. As we continue to follow this story, it's essential to consider the complexities and nuances involved in addressing international crime and the role of law enforcement in combating these threats. We'll be keeping a close eye on developments and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to delve into a complex and sensitive topic that has been making headlines around the world: the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. Specifically, we're going to explore an article that suggests the United States, particularly President Trump, may hold the key to preventing further escalation of violence in Gaza. Now, it's essential to acknowledge that this is a deeply contentious issue with multiple perspectives and historical context. Our goal on Concrete Block is to provide a balanced view, so I encourage listeners to consider various sources and opinions when forming their own understanding. The article we're discussing proposes that an intervention from the United States could potentially prevent further catastrophe in Gaza. It highlights how President Trump has previously demonstrated willingness to distance himself from Israel when it aligns with U.S. interests. This flexibility might allow him to pressure Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to reconsider his plans for a full-scale occupation of Gaza, which many argue would lead to immense humanitarian suffering and destabilization in the region. It's also important to note that there are valid concerns regarding Hamas's actions and the security threats it poses to Israel. However, the question remains whether the current threat justifies the planned response. The international community is watching closely as this situation unfolds, with many calling for a peaceful resolution that respects the rights and dignity of all parties involved. As we discuss these complex geopolitical issues, it's crucial to remember the human element at the heart of the conflict. Innocent civilians on both sides are suffering, and it's our collective responsibility to advocate for peace, understanding, and respect for human rights. In conclusion, the path forward in this conflict is fraught with challenges, but international pressure and diplomacy can play a significant role in shaping its outcome. As global citizens, we must stay informed, encourage dialogue, and support efforts that promote peace and stability in the region. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.